So, welcome to Dragon's Den 2.0. This event is brought to you by the University of Westminster's Italian Society, as well as EasyTap. I'm Thomas Ricci.
My name is Riccardo Facciolongo.
And Riccardo is the founder and CEO of EasyTap, and he's going to take a minute to talk a bit about EasyTap.
Thank you, Thomas. So yeah, as my colleagues say, EasyTap, as you can see, maybe since 30 minutes, EasyTap is a digital business card. So what we do is we provide a new way of connecting that is more sustainable, more convenient, and more efficient. For the first time, after 2 years that we launched this product, we are going to provide for free to everyone EasyTap. So if you download the app, you will be able, at the end of the event, to get a free EasyTap and save £20 even more for what the product price is.
So this is how the event's going to happen. So we're going to start with a startup competition. So we have 3 wonderful startups that are here today, and they'll have 5 minutes to pitch their startups, and then they'll have 5 minutes to answer your questions. So we'll be passing around a microphone, and there are no bad questions, so you can ask literally anything. And then we'll have a vote with the results coming in at the end for the best startup. And then we'll have 2 talks. So the first talk is going to be by the founder of Moonhub, and the second talk is going to be by the founder of Speechify. I hope you're going to enjoy our event, and we're going to start by welcoming our first startup of the evening. I'd like a big round of applause for Isabella from Localmeal.
Hello. Hi, everyone. I'm Isabella. I'm the co-founder of Localmeal. Unfortunately, my other 2 co-founders are back in their home cities, so it's just me today. But anyway, I wanted to start with a personal story of ours from before we were co-founders of a startup. So basically, we were friends on a trip to Lisbon, Portugal. And as you guys might know, Lisbon's well known for their seafood, right? So we were thinking, okay, we made it our mission to find a great, authentic fish place. And so we did some internet search, but we couldn't really distinguish the tourist traps on reviews like Yelp and TripAdvisor. And our usual Instagram go-to bloggers weren't Lisbon-based, so we decided to walk around. And we're walking around, and you know how in capital cities, a lot of times there are those people standing outside of touristy restaurants trying to lure you in, and so we were like, no, we're not gonna go there, so we just kept walking around for hours, and then we had this sort of hallelujah moment where we found this tiny restaurant in a hidden corner. None of the waiters spoke English, and we had honestly the best piece of fish we ever had to this day. And that was a great outcome, but the whole process, we were thinking it was just so difficult to find an authentic, delicious fish place. So this was a personal story of ours, and we decided to do some market research about the entire restaurant discovery process. And that's when we discovered one fascinating trend. And we discovered that despite all of the mobile restaurant discovery platforms you can think of, Yelp, TripAdvisor, Instagram, people don't actually use them at all. So basically, we discovered that 89% of people prefer to rely on word of mouth for their restaurant recommendations when possible. And then naturally, we asked ourselves, why word of mouth? Why aren't people using these great sophisticated apps? And we discovered that this is for 3 main reasons. The first reason is that small local gems aren't visible on popular platforms like Yelp and TripAdvisor, where restaurants can pay to be prioritized. The other issue is that the star review system is unpersonalized. So why should I trust a random stranger's reviews if they don't have the same preferences as me? And finally, current options like Instagram or TikTok are great in some ways, but they can be inconvenient because they're not designed for the sole purpose of restaurant discovery. So if you're in Marylebone looking for a pizza place right now, how quickly are you going to find them on one of these apps? So basically, Localmeal is addressing these issues, and we're bringing the trusted method of word of mouth to a convenient mobile app. And how so? This is what you can see right behind me here. So basically, on Localmeal, only locals can recommend, and there are no chains on the app. So if I'm traveling to an unknown city, I'll be sure to find those local approved places. And it works in your own city as well. And then we're personalizing and curating restaurant recommendations. So you can see these Spotify-like playlists right here. So basically, we're categorizing restaurants for any mood you're in. And finally, local meal is convenient, so you can find the right place at the touch of a button. We have restaurant recommendations on a map, and you can follow friends you trust. And so, one sec. Yeah, so now, why is now a good time for local meal? So we've built a really great community from the ground up before even starting to develop a beta app. So we've been sharing our local restaurant recommendations on Instagram for over a year now, and what's great is that we get great engagement. Not only do our restaurant recommendations get saved up to 70 times each, but people are DMing us all the time, giving us their local restaurant recommendations, which is great to see. And the concept is really working. We nearly now have 800 students around London signed up to our beta waitlist. And also, you know, we're entering a post-pandemic era where we believe it's more important than ever to support these local businesses. And finally, the market potential is huge because everyone all around the world wants to eat delicious food, right? And why are we the right team to solve it? We're 3 recent UCL grads with expertise in business, data analytics, marketing, and also I'm graduating with a master's in business analytics from Imperial, so I cover that data component. And we just recently won a grant from the government of £13,000, which is helping us, and they're also giving us invaluable mentorship. And so, to wrap it up, the question you're probably all wondering is, where are we at now? So we're developing our beta app currently, and we're set to launch in about 2 months' time. And so my ask isn't for money. My ask is for you guys to join us to help us build the most local and trustworthy restaurant discovery platform out there. So if that sounds like a good deal, you can scan the QR code in the corner there. I don't know if it's big enough, and you can follow us on our socials as well. Thanks for listening.
Please stay, there's some questions. That was a wonderful pitch. So do we have any questions for Isabella? Any questions? Yeah.
Hi, thank you for your speech. I actually empathize with you. I just have a quick question about other products on the market. Have you heard about the startup called Spotless? Spotless. No. It's local from London. They're quite similar to what you do. All right.
Any other questions in the crowd? Or maybe, yes, perfect.
Hi, sorry, I may have missed. Did you say something? Did you mention Google? Mm-hmm. Google Maps?
Yeah.
At any point?
Yeah.
Okay. So how different is your app to Google Maps, for instance? Like, why would somebody use your app over Google Maps? Because on Google Maps, you basically get everything, the recommendations from different people, and you get reviews, pictures. Mm-hmm. So what does your app do differently than Google Maps, apart from the whole, local people recommended it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So basically the way we differentiate from Google Maps is in 2 big ways. So the first way is that we're the only restaurant discovery app to really filter down to only locals can recommend, and we filter chains off the app. So you're not going to see anything like Starbucks, Honest Burgers, Subway on Local Meal. We're really focusing on supporting these independently owned restaurants. So that's kind of our niche. And the other thing is that we're not a star review app, so people aren't leaving any bad reviews. It's all about locals recommending their gems and their favorite places for you to see in these areas you're more unfamiliar with. So we're really tackling this issue of trust, because on Google Maps there's this whole issue of, what does the star review system really mean? Are you meant to trust the strangers? What does 1 star mean? What does 5 stars mean? And so we're not a star review app, and we're also really focusing on this local niche. So only locals recommending and no chains.
My name is Swaroop Shah. I'm an investor. How do you know someone is local and not like a James Bond or someone outside?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's the question we always get. So basically right now with our beta, we have an onboarding process that's meant to filter these locals right away. So basically what we do is when you're onboarding on Local Meal and you want to use Local Meal, what we're asking users to do is immediately, of course, input their local cities, but on top of that, give us one restaurant recommendation right away, because our mentality is if someone can't do that on the spot right away, they probably don't know the city well. And then on top of that, what we're doing to build a more robust credibility later on is like, as you recommend on the app, if your recommendation gets validation, like saves or people like your recommendation, you kind of build this credibility. So in the end, we're gonna have some locals that are verified on Local Meal. So not only have they given recommendations, but they're really verified locals.
Hi, I just follow this question. I think you answer a lot about the kind of the credit rate. You know, I'm a customer. I know so many apps because I'm also foodie. Yeah. So I really hope maybe one app can give me the kind of authentic, suggestion. So I'm really curious how you manage this kind of credit rate, because for example, like Google Maps, I think if you do this part very well, you definitely can compete with Google Maps and also TripAdvisor, because I'm kind of person, I use this kind of apps a lot, and I just realized, and also my current job need me to travel throughout the world, so I really need this kind of apps, especially, I'm a foodie, so yeah, it's quite important part. I really wish to know how you manage it. Yeah, it's quite important.
Yeah, thanks a lot. That experience that you're talking about is an experience that I think so many people have experienced. So, for example, I'm originally from LA, and whenever people are going, they want to ask me because they know I'm from there, and they know that I'm going to give these good restaurant recommendations that are worth your money, that are worth you going. And so really, like with Local Meal, there's kind of, again, two things that I'm going to reiterate on, is we're filtering people who can recommend from the start. So only locals can recommend, and immediately that kind of builds this credibility. And then on top of that, as I mentioned, there's really this whole aspect of then people who interact with the app a lot and who are providing really good recommendations, they're going to get this sort of Local Meal verified tick. So yeah, this credibility you're talking about, that's our #1 focus in the way we've designed the app. That's like trust is what we're tackling. And obviously this beta is meant to also test this concept. So our beta isn't the be-all, end-all. Like, we're planning to see how users interact, how the credibility of restaurant recommendations turn out, and we're gonna adjust our design from there as well.
Thank you very much. Let's have a round of applause for Isabella. And now for our second startup of the evening, we're going to have Greta with My Money.
Woo. Hello, everyone. My name is Greta, and I am the CMO of My Money. Very different business from Local Meal, even though I need it. Please make it quickly. So My Money is a biometric payment system based purely on your fingerprint. And currently, the payment sector is experiencing two very big problems. The first one being the lack of security, and the second one being the lack of financial inclusion. In 2021, card fraud attacks had cost the global economy $29 billion. This is very easy to imagine happening, knowing that it takes 6 seconds to clone a credit card and only 1 second to clone a contactless credit card. Furthermore, there are 30% of the people worldwide unbanked and without access to the internet, and 2 billion people worldwide do not have a smartphone. So the solution to this problem are biometric payments. In fact, biometric payment systems are the most secure payment system on the market today, and they will allow everyone to access financial services. Biometric payment systems are also the most convenient payment system because you won't need a phone, card, or cash, and you won't need to remember any annoying passwords to be able to pay. You will just need to reach out your finger. So how does My Money work? It's very easy. The user just downloads the app, registers themselves, their payment methods, their fingerprint, and then they can go out and pay using only their finger. The market for global payments is rapidly growing. It's going to grow by 4 times in the next 4 years, but so are frauds. And that's why competitors are starting to emerge in the market. But their solutions still all have critical issues which don't make them usable in any type of situation. For example, facial recognition takes lots of data to be processed, so the processing time is longer, and it also needs the right amount of light to work. Therefore, it cannot be used in every situation, for example, in the underground where there is low light, or in stadiums where you need to process lots of people quickly. The unique selling points of My Money are that it is a completely voluntary act, so you need to choose to put your finger on the reader. It is quick because it doesn't need to process lots of data points like facial recognition. And also it is the most secure in terms of your privacy because I cannot know what the color of your skin is, what your gender is, or what you look like generally. Going into the market will be very easy because all of the major POS producers are producing smart machines with embedded fingerprint readers in them. And we are partnering with all of the major producers. Specifically, we have partnerships with PAX and Skidata, which are both for attended and unattended POS machines. And right now, we're going to launch in Italy with those 2 partners. And actually, PAX has just signed a contract to supply 60,000 of their new-gen terminals with embedded fingerprint readers to Poste Italiane, which is kind of like the equivalent of Royal Mail, but in Italy. And our system is going to be the one used to manage all of these point-of-sale machines. Our team is rapidly growing. For the moment, we have lots of amazing people in it and over 85 years of cumulative experience in the sector. And yeah, it's going to be live very soon in Italy in a couple of months. And then from there, we're going to expand to the rest of Europe. And with this initial B2B2C model, we're going to have 0.4% of every transaction, but we're later going to become a virtual bank, allowing us to have 0.7%. That is it.
Thank you so much, Greta. Does anyone have any questions? I'm sure it's a really unique idea.
So first of all, thanks for the presentation, super idea. I have a question. How can you ensure, like, do you have a patent pending for this? And how would you ensure that, let's say, Revolut doesn't do this themselves with, I don't know, better development capabilities and just sort of takes the idea and uses it? Yeah.
Thank you for the question.
Brilliant idea if you came up with it.
Yeah.
Wow. So, yeah.
Well, yes, actually, my mom is the founder. She's in the, yep. But yeah, we do have a patent. For now, it covers everywhere in Italy. We're waiting, we have it in the process. It's getting approved for the rest of Europe. And about bigger companies copying it, I think they would be, it would be more advantageous for them to just collaborate with us, and that's why we have so many partnerships established, exclusive ones, because that's our territory, and so if they want to do it, they would have to come through us.
Cool. Super. Cool.
We'll go around that way.
Thank you very much. Really very impressive presentation. My name is Imtiaz Hussain. I'm an investor, entrepreneur, and I have wealth management business. I'm partner with a FTSE 100 company. My question, and I help you on startups and the companies which are on more stable footings. What is your plan next 5 to 10 years down the road? Do you want to keep this company, or you want to just come to a stage and just sell it?
I think this question is more towards my mom, who is the founder and CEO, but I'm quite sure the vision is to keep it and grow with it. I know how much work has been put into this, and yeah, I don't know if you want to answer this question. Yeah?
Hi, everyone. Yes, I would like to build more about this and because this company was born to make some good in the world, because with our system we are able to bring financial inclusion everywhere, and so I hope to do it for more time that I can. And also we have inside the possibility to give money to charity foundations all around the world, because it will be mandatory when before you finalize the onboarding inside our app. And so, yes, this is the main purpose, not to make money, but to make some good for real. Thank you.
Other question here?
Yeah. I think it's a brilliant idea, but how would you respond to the criticism of people who are too scared to even use like facial recognition for their mobile banking, because that's a big group of millions of people, maybe the older generations, who are scared to, give such a personal detail, even like their fingerprint.
This is a very tough one, but usually early adopters are young people like you, and I know for sure that young people doesn't care. I mean, apparently they don't care about privacy, and because all of you are on Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, everywhere. So about all these people, I can say that all the fingerprint readers are FBI certified. They have liveness detection, so it will be impossible to fraud the system and to steal data and to use them, because with liveness detection, I can understand if a finger is real, so no fake fingerprint made by silicon like 007. And most of all, it's impossible to use a dead finger, because maybe there are very, very bad people all around the world. So in order to steal money from rich guys and people, they can think about chopped fingers and to use them. But it will not work, because they have liveness detection. So this system is very secure. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Greta. Okay, so now we're going to have the third startup, the last one, Gadder.
Sure. Hi. Hi, Mark.
I'm Ivana. Nice to meet you all.
First of all, thank you very much for putting the event together. Thank you for coming. It's very nice to have. So our story, first I'll introduce ourselves, and then I'll introduce our product. And our story begins just down the road in a gym called BXR. We were both training, we're both boxes, and we're both really social. So we're both really involved in actually our social circles. So we were really passionate about solving the problem of discovery, and thank you so much for introducing it so well.
Thanks, Isabella.
Yeah. So we decided to create an AI-powered platform that helps people discover any kind of restaurant, cafe, or bar, and also to organize to go there with their friends.
Yeah, so that's why we have developed an AI algorithm. The AI is proprietary. We developed it ourselves. And I mean, obviously we cannot tell you the secret formula, but I really want to tell you about two things we took into account. First of all, is your personal preferences, because we strongly believe that discovery should be tailored to you, and it should also be social. So basically, the more you interact with the app, the more the app is going to learn about you, it's going to learn about your preferences, and every day you're going to see some recommendations of restaurants, bars, and cafes that you most likely are going to like. The second part, it derives from something people say, and it's like, you are the average of the 5 people closest to you. So we really take into account the fact that discovery is social. And we made sure to include in the algorithm the possibility to tailor a bit more the recommendation for the places that also your friends like. This also comes down to the fact that we really want to amplify the connections between the people you already know, so that if you see on the app that your friend liked the same place, maybe you can go out and try it out together. And actually, on this note, Mark is going to tell you a bit more about what we want to do with you today.
Yeah, thank you. So we know that you guys are in your last weeks of this year's university lectures right now, and some of you may be going to another year, or some of you may be graduating, but we all know that you're eager to kind of celebrate end of lectures. So on the app, if you download it, we've set up a little list of options for you to go and try. And when you start liking and discovering different restaurants on the app and different bars, you'll be able to get your own personalized recommendations immediately. And actually, we wanted to talk to you about it after, so we are curious for you to try and then tell us what you get and see if we got it right for you. So that feedback would be really valuable.
Actually, fun fact, this list is actually taken, it's best burgers, because it's Friday, it's time to relax, it's time to eat a lot, and it's taken from our TikTok. Some of you might have seen us on TikTok, so we became pretty viral there, and we did one of our videos here, actually, in Westminster. So, I mean, if you want, also go and follow the TikTok page, it's pretty hilarious, so. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, we decided to leave a bit more time for questions. So if you have any questions, we're happy to answer.
So yes, do we have any questions for Gadder? Anyone? Ooh.
How your app describe the name and your activity? Like food discovery, like your app name is a Gadder, right?
Yes.
So what is the meaning of?
Oh, thank you. Thank you for this question. Do you want to, or should I? No, you should. All right. So originally it was called Gadder, and when we were just starting out about a year ago, and then we realized it was trademarked. So we started brainstorming, and Ivana comes up with Gadder, and we are like, okay, that sounds good. And then we Google it, and it's actually a real word. And it means somebody who travels to social activities habitually. So it defines our perfect user.
It's a word in Old English that no one uses anymore, and it's quite hilarious that we know it because we're both immigrants. So, but yeah, it makes sense at the end of the day.
Okay. Another thing is like this app describe only the food restaurants, based on the AI, right?
It's restaurant, bars, and cafes based on AI.
Like if Google similar develop this AI, then how you compete with Google? Like Google have all of the data, all restaurant, bars, pubs, all things.
All right. Yeah, thank you for the question. So just to reiterate, if I understood correctly, you're saying what if Google does the same and reproduces
yes.
it, right? All right. There's two parts to this answer. Google is huge and they can reproduce anything they want, so I'm not a fan of this kind of questions in general. But to answer it specifically, we've actually trimmed down all the restaurants in London, so it's semi-curated. There's 20,000 restaurants in London. We start with London. And out of those 20,000, we have left 2,000 for you to be recommended. And that's the problem of actually the startup that I was presenting earlier, that you only want to hear about the good recommendations. You don't want to hear about the bad recommendations. So we've semi-curated it, and then we developed an AI algorithm that also recommends it specifically to you. So the recommendations are, by default, very good, but they also are tailored specifically to you.
Basically, if Google, for example, if I imagine this on Google Maps, you would have like all the restaurants, bars, even kebab shops that are on Google Maps. And I mean, to be fair, you don't really want to be recommended one of those because you just walk in and go. So, I mean, I say that actually right now, we are the only one in the market that has a comprehensive curated database and also offers AI-powered discovery.
Yeah.
But if Google wants to talk to us, I'm welcome to have a chat.
Sorry, I know you don't like these questions, but just on the whole Google thing. So what would you do if, for example, Google Bard, because that's just come out, if Google decides to do something like this exactly the same way, except with Google Bard, it basically works specifically for you, because it's basically ChatGPT, but Google's version. So would you think that would be like a competitor for you, or would you be able to incorporate the API into what you're doing?
So for us, it's also about network, okay? Because, for example, we know that right now we're starting to build a crucial network, and we start strong in the area we know the most, so Marylebone. So we know that people are going to get kind of used of seeing these UIs, kind of like what TikTok did. So getting a very, very easy and simple UI and getting core networks in, and then expanding it. So obviously, I mean, Google can do whatever they want, but we're trying to really, really build on network effects. And for example, for us, it's Marylebone. So we know that all the people in the Marylebone area, for example, a lot of people have Gadder, and they're all going to look for recommendations. For example, a friend of mine, she really liked the guy, and she went to his place list because you can see the places that someone liked. And she started liking places such that she had similar recommendations, and then she had kind of the icebreaker. So, I mean, the answer here is actually building a network that is local, but obviously, I don't know, Mark, if you have a better answer than this, because I...
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. Generally, to generalize, it's about where, but it's also about who you're going with. And our unique thing is that we show you who is interested in the same things as you are, so you're able to see this, and we showcase and we kind of amplify the connections that you have with your wider network that way.
Also, one thing is like, Google is like a search engine for basically everything and everyone. So I don't think they would be interested, I mean, at least in my opinion, to do something that is curated towards a certain part of the... Go.
You have a follow-up? Go. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, go.
I mean, in a sense, yes, but recommendation engines are a little bit more complex than that. So there's a differentiation between a specified recommendation engine and a AI that recommends everything and that answers your question. So the way we work is we build your profile, in a sense, and then we build the recommendations around it. This AI that you're describing is a bit too young and a bit too broad to do it right now. Of course, down the line, if they've specialized in it, they could do that, but not right now, and not in the way that it exists right now.
To be fair, it's also into, as I was saying, wrapping it into a very, very nice UI where you can also see the social part of it. Because, okay, ask Googlebot or ChatGPT, and then I'm going to have a list, but am I going to be able to see which one of my friends has liked the same place? Not really. Am I going to be able to connect with them right now? And does it look pretty? I don't know. I think users want something that's easy, fun. I want to go out on Friday night. I don't want to think about it. I just want to see good pictures, people I like, they like the same place, and that's about it. So.
Okay, do we have one last question? Yes, last one.
One more. What about the financial side? How are you guys going to make money?
Yeah, we have two avenues. So we have B2B and B2C. Actually, we already started monetizing because we provide data analytics and marketing services to some partner businesses. And the way we monetize on the B2B side of things is that we're going to offer subscriptions where we're going to provide in-depth data analytics because we have, well, basically whatever the algorithm produces is extremely valuable for them. And actually we develop the data pipelines together with this partner based on their specific asks. And then on the other side, once we start building more on the social element, once we actually introduce the people discovery function that is going to be based on the same algorithm, but basically recommending you people that have common interests. At that point, we're also going to start introducing a B2C. So we're going to also start having a freemium model. So it's kind of B2B and B2C. That's how we're going to make money. But not right now. Now we're scaling, so we want to get as many people as possible in.
Perfect. A big round of applause for Gadder. Okay, now it's going to be your time to vote for your favorite startup. This can be on different criterias, on maybe the most inspirational startup or the one you preferred. We're also going to give you 3 minutes to vote as we prepare for the next part of the event. So yeah, in 3 minutes, we'll come back to you. Okay. Perfect. Don't worry about the battery. Ricardo, is it ready here? Yeah. We're going to switch. We're switching it. Okay. Yeah. Is this frozen? No, this one doesn't do frozen.
Go for referrals, is it almost like
I think it's not on.
You've heard of the Fork? It's a restaurant booking app where basically if you go to the Fork, you as a user get
that's a map.
like a promotion.
Okay.
But the thing is, the restaurants because they can see that like they have customers coming to them.
Nice.
So as soon as we have like a metric where people can book to the system, and like, hey, any sort of metric to show restaurants like, hey, we got you 100 customers. Can we get something? So we're gonna.
So in a way, that's.
Questions? So I'm going to speak.
Where we would have to be careful because our whole value proposition is trust. So if you have ads all over the app, that might be problematic.
Appreciate it, man. So yeah, so any photos that capture the crowd as well? Photos. You got my phone, right? Yeah. Perfect. I'm going to put it on.
Edo. Solita.
If they can like pay a certain.
Maybe meet Edo. He's part of the Italian.
Vice President of the society. Eduardo.
Eduardo.
Yeah, Eduardo.
Eduardo, do you mind taking some pictures?
Of course, yeah.
So this is Demi's phone. Of Demi when he's talking, videos and stuff.
You don't mind capturing the crowd a little bit as well?
Of course, yeah.
Pronto?
that's a good catch. That's skill.
Both, yeah.
I'll be on this side, so whenever you see if I'm like doing like a movement with my hand is big, like for the time and stuff, this should be good, you know, like is this a live link if you don't know that you can get
We have the presentation here as a PDF.
Oh, okay. Is it possible to click it as just a link?
No, because basically this is the email of the professor.
Okay.
So you should like, I don't know how to grant the access.
Oh, I see.
It's a bit complicated because you sent to me my account, I downloaded it in a PDF, and now it's in the PDF on the...
Oh, I sent you one more link. If you just forward it, I can just click it then as well. Sorry about the delay. So if you just go into that one, I gave you a shareable link that anybody can access. So if you just go to that, and then just forward that link to the email, just this one. Forward, instead of that, and then just the professor's email. Sorry about this, appreciate it. My presentation has some tips, so maybe it was a live link instead. Thanks, Ricardo. Appreciate that. And then once he clicks on it, it'll open because it's that's only good. Worst case scenario. Sorry. Worst case, we can just okay, no worries. I'll just is it fine? Sure. I can just do it in PDF, it's fine. I'll just make a joke about it in the groups.
Full screen, yeah? I'll just do full screen. Excuse me. Sorry if I access your email just to find the file.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, everyone, we're going to be starting again soon. Could you please take your seats? Okay.
So when I say next slide.
And now, for the second part of the event, we proudly present Demi from Moonhub, and he's going to present Moonhub.
Oh, thank you.
Hello, hi everyone. Thank you very much. Happy Friday. I know people love their Friday evening, so I appreciate your time. If I was to say, how do you feel about Friday? Can I hear some noise for how you feel about Friday evening? It's okay. I'm not going to do the thing where I make you go even louder, but it's good. But if I was to ask you how you feel about corporate training or just training in general, Didn't think so. Boom, right? The reason being is because training sucks, right? I'm not going to go into it right now. I'll go into it during my presentation. But I noticed this during my time in internships whilst I was at university, through corporate environments, through retail environments. Everyone goes through the rites of passage of working in hospitality as well. But training sucked in all of these places. And that's when, after university, I founded Moonhub. Next slide, please. So this is supposed to be a GIF, but it wasn't able to be live linked, so it's a PDF. Corporate training sucks, with only about 5% of information being retained. This isn't because of the information itself, but it's how it's being transferred. I'm not going to talk about death by PowerPoint, because all your lectures use them, and I don't want to insult them. But it's not effective for information transfer. It just simply doesn't work. Next slide, please. So 6 years ago, 6.5, I got a team together to help solve this problem. I had this wacky idea that if you immerse people in an immersive environment where they can actually feel like they're experiencing things in real time, maybe, just maybe, they'll feel like they've already been there, done it, got the t-shirt, and then not have to go through the whole middle step of interpreting things and going back. So I set out to create, next slide please, Moonhub, the virtual reality training platform. That should also be a GIF. And essentially what happens is we have a patented scoring system that allows for easy, quick data capture for loads of different environments. Who here's done their driving test, by the way? Good. Who here's, hello. Who here has done the hazard perception part of the driving test? Cool. So imagine a hazard perception scoring system, but for everything. If you're training for health and safety, instead of getting a yes or a no answer, you actually get how quickly did you notice that trip hazard? Were you looking in the right place at the right time? And was your general intuition on track? All from a simple look and a click. So it unlocks a whole new world of data. Next slide, please. So a little bit more about the market and why I went into it. So PwC valued the VR software training market at $294 billion, with the entirety of the VR software market being valued at $1.5 trillion. Next slide, please. And with VR training, what they found scientifically is that you can train up to 4 times faster, companies can save up to 64% at cost, but more importantly, people retain up to 75% of information in comparison to that 5% figure I said earlier. Next slide, please. Also meant to be a GIF, but this is part of what people get when they train on our platform. They get all these cool little data, bits and insights, and they get to get way more cool information onto an online dashboard. Next slide, please. And this online dashboard is gamified, and companies are loving it because people are getting very competitive about something that no one was really caring about before. Next slide, please. So we have our Lunar Library. We train in different areas. We've featured in the Times for our healthcare. We do defense and security. That's at the Royal Opera House. And we have our essentials, where we have things like diversity and equity training, and also with health and safety, etc. Next slide, please. We don't train him specifically, but what we do is we train Just Eat and a lot of their couriers in the UK, as well as their internal staff, and we're looking at a rollout in Europe for their security of their hubs as well. Next slide, please. So a few of our partners listed here. We have many more, but these are the only ones I wanted to fit into this slide. Next slide, please. And the reason why I'm whizzing through this is because I want to talk to you more about the entrepreneurial journey and how we went from zero to where we are. So we also did a study with the University of Leeds Beckett internally. Next slide, please. And we found that people were incredibly passionate about what they were learning after using our training in comparison to what they were doing before. And this is because, again, they're in these VR environments and they feel like they're actually getting prepped for something, which is, by and large, one of the biggest issues that training has had so far. Next slide, please. And we were also featured in the Times for this as well, and it got rave reviews. Next slide, please. So since inception, when I founded the company, we've been featured in a number of articles from Sifted, which is the tech publication that people look at for startups, all the way right through to Forbes. This is outdated because we've been featured in quite a few more things as well since then, including the BBC and the Evening Standard. Next slide, please. We raised a $2.6 million seed round last year. We also got further backing from Meta, from Google, from Microsoft. Someone said I was trying to collect the infinity stones of the big tech companies, but we just got backed by Amazon last week. And yeah, we're continuing to grow our presence, especially within the big 4. Next slide, please. We also have some fantastic strategic backers, including Miles Jacobson. Has anyone played Football Manager here? You have? Yeah, so he's the studio creator behind that video game as well. Next slide, please. And this is my fantastic team. I'm not going to tell you the secret behind that photo or how we did that. But we are a creative team based out in East London, Hackney Wick, which is hipster central for anyone who's been there. And yeah, having a team of 20, it's weird when you start a company on your dining table. Next slide, please, which I think should be the penultimate. And these are my fantastic co-founders, Hannah and Vin. So that's the presentation. And I started the company back in 2016, and it's really easy to think, okay, cool, loads of things have happened, but how do you get there? And it's all from a mantra of, instead of doing a when I, then I mindset, adopting a because I, now I mindset. So a when I, then I mindset looks at the mountain in the distance, and it's like, right, I want to be a company that's worth over 10 million, and I'm gonna raise X million, and I wanna do this and do that. But it's always when I get there, then I can do this. When I get my first customer, then I can actually get investment. When I build the app, then I can actually get customers. When I get a developer, then I can build the app. There's always going to be something that's just out of your reach. And I noticed this, especially when starting the company. So from 2016, when I started it, I knew that I needed 2 co-founders, and I brought on 2 fantastic friends. From then, we knew that before we can build anything, we need to know if people want this. So the because I was, because I now know that we have a great idea, now I need to go into the market and figure out whether or not people like it. So that's exactly what we did between 2017 and 2018. And spoiler, people really wanted it. We then, in 2018, collaborated with some fantastic people, but we still didn't really have a fully functioning platform. And during that time, we said, right, we need money. Well, because we now know we need money, and we have skill sets like marketing and digital design, we bootstrapped and raised funds through those avenues so that now we could actually start building a prototype and a beta. From 2018 to 2020, we continued to develop, and we realized, right, because we have something that kind of works, now we can go to an investor, an angel investor, and get some funding, which we did. We've got £170,000, about $230,000 at the time each, and got a lot of exchange rates. And from then, we continued to build until we were ready to commercialize in 2020. But during that time, we also realized that, well, to get clients on board, they need to hear about us. So because we knew that they needed to hear about us, and because we had something to show to the press, we got featured in the BBC. I was on BBC Breakfast. Fun fact, I do not try and grab the mic from the presenter because they will not let go, and you'll just end up holding their hand on live TV. I learned that the hard way. And the Evening Standard and other press articles. Now, we launched our product in March 2020. Don't know why anyone would think that was a great idea, but in hindsight, we couldn't have known what was going to come. But that was actually one of the blessings in disguise, because Just Eat, during that time, really needed a solution to train their staff who were freaking out at home. They were thinking, okay, we don't know how to train these staff in a way that we can trust, and people are freaking out because they don't know whether or not they're going to get the development they need. So, in come Moonhub, and we actually got our first commercial client then. Okay, now we have our first commercial client. What can we do? And these incremental steps allowed us to continue building and building and building until we 20x'd our revenue between 2020 and 2021. And at that point, we were like, right, we need even more money. We need to raise another round. Well, because we had then 20x'd our revenue, now we know this is the time to use that momentum to raise a round. And raise a round we did. We then got backing from Pi Labs and Ada Ventures, which are 2 VCs, to the tune of $2.6 million. And from then, we were able to build our team to where it is today. We also knew that we wanted to start aligning ourselves with some of the biggest tech companies in the world. Well, because we were now prominent with some seed funding, now we were able to go to Google, where we got backed. Meta also got backed. Amazon got backed. And now we're partnering with Accenture, PwC, and all these big companies. But the main lesson and takeaway from that is this was always sort of, not the end goal, but one of the goals, one of the mountains in the distance. But from a dining table where you've got nothing but a notepad, it feels incredibly far away. So you need to focus on what's in front of you in terms of the incremental steps. Because I see so many founders. And by the way, I loved the pictures earlier. They were great. And I'm really excited to see you take them off. So many founders really get hung up on trying to perfect things or look at things in the future and say, right, just need to get that one thing to come to us and then we can just take off. But people don't often know that it's not going to come. You have to take these incremental steps of what you have in front of you right now, and eventually you'll get to that mountain. And what a lot of people don't realize is that that mountain is a lot further away than they think, and they have to take so many steps to get there. But now we are growing our revenues. We are on our way to Series A, getting our first US client, which is really exciting. And yeah, I feel like I've not gone over time, have I? Okay, I have gone over time. But that's a short synopsis of Moonhub, the journey, my biggest takeaway from it. And I'd love to open up the floor to any questions if anybody has any.
Yeah. I have a question, actually.
Hello.
So, for young entrepreneurs like me, do you have any suggestion to raise funds? Because I feel like it's one of the most crucial parts during a startup journey to start with. Majority of startups start self-funding, and after, they need to do the boost to arrive to a next level. So do you have any recommendation to, how to approach venture capitals, how to find angel investors?
That's a really good point, and thanks for the question. Don't raise from VC if you're not ready. I promise you it's not a good idea. I've seen so many companies raise from VC, really shouldn't have. They celebrate after fighting tooth and nail for that funding and realize it was the worst thing they could have done. Because once you raise from VC, they want to see returns within 18 months. They want to see that growth. They don't want to see you build. A lot of VCs want to see you go from where you invested then, and a lot of them are looking for you to 10x what they've done with that money. Again, you're not going to 10x every round, otherwise we'll have 1 million Facebook-sized companies on the planet, Meta-sized companies on the planet. But when it comes to finding angels, go to networks where you have high net worth individuals. You may not know who they are, but places with similar interests. If you're an HR tech company, go to an HR tech conference. There will be people who have the capacity to invest, and if not, they will put you in touch with those who do. Raising angel funding is great because you can actually lean on the support networks of those people. You won't necessarily have the insane pressure. Check your angels and make sure they're not like those people. And it really can supercharge your business, and sometimes it is very crucial. But make sure that you've got good plans in place, and make sure that you're ready to take that funding on, not just with a hope and dream, but do as much as you can in your own volition, and I promise you it'll give investors a lot of confidence. Because if you can do a lot with very little, they can imagine that you can do a lot with just a little bit more. Awesome.
Yeah, I have a quick one.
Hey, man.
I'm sure you heard this quote, and it says something like, growing a company to this kind of level is like chewing glass and staring into the abyss.
I have heard that quote. Yeah. I think, do you know what? I think they were putting it mildly. Yeah, no, it is. I'd say that's what it's like, but then you're also, like, I don't know, having loads of things chucked at you, hot water poured on your feet. No, I'm joking. It's hard. It's tough. It's one of those things where you never really know how well you're getting it right. You'll always be learning. One thing that you'll notice, every CEO, founder, person who's getting to a high place, they, even at those points, even at right now, sometimes I'm like, right, am I doing this correctly? It's always a learning curve. But typically, if you're a founder, you're the first one doing something exactly the way that you're doing it. So you're the one who's paving the way for this kind of thing. So there isn't really a blueprint. Sometimes there is kind of a blueprint, and someone's done something similar. But most of the time, you're going to be figuring it out by yourself. And I'd say the number one thing is you're going to be feeling like you're swimming in air for a long time and getting no traction, and you're going to think, what am I doing? Is this even worth my time? And then you're going to get a little bit of traction. And then that's the moment that changes everything, because then you're like, oh, I actually have something here. Run with that feeling, make sure you stick with it, and yeah, it'll make the chewing glass a little bit more bearable. Hey, man.
Thank you, love the idea. You said you don't like looking forward, but you don't like planning. You like to do what now, but what is the plan? What's the vision for down 5 years and 10 years?
It's a great question, and don't get me wrong, I love looking forward, and planning is incredibly important, but it's really important to not get too fixated on it, because you'll then not look at what's around you right now. Plan in 5 years is to be one of, if not the biggest name in VR training. I got the name Moonhub from the inspiration, from the innovation it took to get to the moon during the space race, and I want to be a hub of innovation for many years to come, so we could branch out to different things in the future. But as of right now, we want to be the go-to name in VR training, and we're positioning ourselves like that. So we've just announced recently our partnership with Meta. They launched the video last week, which was great. They got told off, which is not great. So figuring out stuff with them. But yeah, really exciting times for us, and looking forward to going forward.
Sorry, follow up. Who draws your scenarios?
We do. So we partner with external collaborators and experts in different fields. And yeah, we also work with companies and their learning and development teams too. But we have our own in-house creative team, which is our secret sauce, our bread and butter.
I've got one at the back here.
No worries, man, no rush.
Thanks very much. Thank you for your story. And it's great to meet someone who speaks faster than me on stage.
Yeah.
I was going to come down and grab the mic out of your hand, but I heard it was a bad idea. So I'm really interested in human psychology. So the psychology of a great entrepreneur. What is it that keeps you going when times are tough?
Every day? I'm joking. What keeps me going? Well, what keeps me going is a number of things. Seeing the impacts of lives that we have. So directly within our company, when we do things like give pay rises or see people progress in their career, it makes it like very worth it for me. Also, hearing stories and testimonials from people that our software directly impacts. There was a girl during the pandemic who works for a company that I won't name, but she had severe anxiety before starting the role.
So when she got our headset in the post and she had the best onboarding experience, her words, she said it alleviated a lot of her anxiety, and she wrote a personal letter, which for me was still, till this day, one of the highlights. And what keeps me going is knowing that this is something that's changing the way that people have always done things, and that's what I'm passionate about. Innovation, driving innovation, and then also taking it to new heights and involving a lot of people on the journey as well.
Quick question.
Hi.
Do you think that you could have got to where you are now as a solo founder?
That is a really good question. No, I don't think I could have. I think when it comes to having co-founders, it really does help when you have people who genuinely you can lean on. They're good friends, and times will get tough very frequently. And you need to have those people that you can lean on and just say, look, it sucks. I need to pick me up today. They may need to pick me up another day. And when you can bounce off each other like that, it makes all the difference. And if you can get a co-founder you can trust, I highly recommend it. And if you can't find one you can trust, please don't get a co-founder, because I've seen terrible, terrible things. And yeah.
Here.
Hi.
First of all, congrats, because you are running your business very well. Amazing.
Thank you.
And I'm really curious, at the very beginning, you open your business. How did you protect your IP? Did you maybe apply for any patent to protect your IP?
Yes. So, and maybe as the gentleman said over there, I do speak quite quickly when I've had a few cups of coffee in the evening. So, as I mentioned earlier, we have a patented scoring system. So it's that hazard perception style scoring system I mentioned. But you can't patent your way into protection, right? One of our investors says that if you do something well enough, it's not easy to copy. And in partnering with Meta very recently, there's always that concern. I heard a lot of questions about, oh, what about if Google does this? What about if this big company does that? Please don't underestimate how disorganized these big companies are. They do not have the efficiency that you think. You have an advantage being a startup, being lean, being quick, and being agile. This will allow you to stay ahead of the competition, because by the time they sign off a new project, which takes them 6 months to approve, you've already implemented half of what they want to do as features. These big companies, especially if you have customers, traction, would much rather work with you and then eventually acquire you than just pour money into a department and try and build it themselves.
But at the very beginning, you are like kind of a bird with quite big wings. But how can you, for example, like, I agree with you. Sometimes, for big companies, they do have a lot of resources. We shouldn't, be afraid of, because we just open our own ideas and business. But there are the two parts. For example, like ideas, and also another one is about. It's the reason why I ask, like VR, and for example, like a ChatGPT. There's a lot of IP must, inside. So about these two parts, about this idea, I think it's so easy to steal that. And and about another part about the technology, I think is what I really want to ask: how you protect your IP of this technology.
Thanks for the question. I would say never underestimate how hard it is to start and run a company. Don't get too focused on your competition, especially people who are at the same level as you, because 9 times out of 10, your potential customers won't have heard of your competition. There's a competitor of ours that has like 85 million raised in total. Everyone we speak to, no one's heard of them. Maybe a few big companies have heard of them, but the world is so big. And the thing is that, again, you may think IP is easy to steal. There's a founder, a competitor of ours, who I think he blocked me on LinkedIn at one point. I did nothing to him, and because I tried to search him up and I couldn't find him. And then only the other week, he's added me on LinkedIn, said, hey, let's go for a coffee, and said, look, it's better to bake a cake together, and when the cake gets bigger, then fight for a bigger slice of the pie. What I mean by that is, it's not that easy to copy what somebody else is doing, especially if what you're doing is good. So like my investor said, if your tech is good and it's worth anything, it's not going to be that easy to steal. And if it is that easy to steal, try and make it not so. So give yourself a USP, or get a barrier where you've got a lot of customers. Because we always think, oh, somebody can do it bigger, somebody can do it better. Don't underestimate all the factors that go into building a company, because there will be a lot of things that stand in the way from competitors trying to steal what you do. You're welcome.
And one last question.
Hello.
As you mentioned, it's hard to start a company. So what you wish you knew before starting up?
What, sorry?
What you wish to knew before starting up?
Just so I understand the question, you said what to do before starting up a company? Sorry?
No. What you wished you knew before starting up? Like, what?
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. I've been a long day. I'm tired.
It's okay.
Knowledge. So in terms of what you should know before starting up a company, there are a few things. First, obviously the legal nitty-gritty. So starting a company on Company's House, get, if you can, an affordable accountant. Don't get nabbed by the silly things like late filings, etc. Once you've got that stuff out of the way, to be very honest with you, everything's pretty much fair game. You have people who go to like sermons and like lectures every single day and like, I'm going to build the best and biggest business. And whilst they're doing that, they've got their competitor being like, okay, cool. Hey man, so I'm starting this company. Do you want to buy it? Do you want to buy my product? And again, if you get too stuck in like the planning and trying to make the perfect business, you're going to get stuck for a while because you can't at the beginning. It's going to be so messy. But what I'd say is make sure you've got a market. So make sure people actually want to buy your product. Then, once you've got enough information and genuine information, so I think somebody called it the mum test, right? Make sure that somebody outside of your mum or your dad wants to actually pay for what you do, right? Because our parents will always say the nicest things. After that, you then find a way of saying, right, we've got people who want to pay money for it. It doesn't exist yet. The barrier to getting that money is building it. If there's somebody willing to fund this, great. If not, I need to find a way to fund it myself. If you don't have the skill set to build it, find somebody who does. If you don't have the cash to pay them, be willing to give up some equity of the company if you trust them. But there's always a way to start, like here and now. And I'd say make sure that you speak to mentors who have done it before, other founders who have done it, learning about, okay, for your particular business, what the best path is. Is it an accelerator? Is it, just getting into the market and trying to sell and make small wins? There'll be so many different ways of starting a business, but talk to people. It's the best way to figure out what the best thing that fits for you would be. And then once you've spoken to enough people who've done similar things, you'll have a rough idea as to where you need to make your first step.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Perfect. A big round of applause for Moonhub. If you guys have more questions, you'll be able to ask them during the networking time at the end. And now we are going to have Cliff from Speechify.
How's it going, guys? Just before I start, I want to get a sample of the room. Who here is a first-year student? Who is a second-year student? Third-year student? If there's fourth year in the UK? Or like master's student, PhD? Awesome. Someone who's not a student. Oh, awesome. Great. And then who here is technical? Like you can code things? Oh, fantastic. Cool. And cool. Normally I would ask you guys what you want to learn, but we didn't have an intro, so you don't know who I am. So we'll do that after. Cool. All right. Gordon, good? Sweet. I want to raise the energy in the room for 1 second. My name is Cliff Weitzman. I'm the CEO of Speechify. I'm glad you guys are here. So, in this talk today, I have one specific goal, which is to make sure that in some way this talk will radically change the trajectory of your life, because it helps you make a decision that otherwise you would not have made. I was a student sitting exactly in your seats like a couple of years ago. Today, there's 25 million people who use Speechify. There's more than 100 people who work for Speechify across 20 different countries in the world. And I'm super dyslexic. Like first, second, third, fourth grade, no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't figure out how to read. Can you guys hear me without a microphone? Yeah. Sweet, let's do it without a microphone. Okay, so we can do the microphone for the recording. And I have 4 younger siblings who are brilliant. My sister speaks 7 languages. My brother did his master's in artificial intelligence at Stanford. And I couldn't figure out how to spell my last name. And it got to the point where my parents were like, it's impossible that this kid is this level of lazy, that he's not doing any of his chapter readings. And it's unlikely that he's that slow. So my dad started reading books to me. And the book I wanted to read the most, that everybody else got to read, was Harry Potter. And so my dad has a really deep voice. So every night, I would sit with my dad, and he would read Harry Potter to me. And he recorded it in a cassette tape. And many years later, I still have the first chapter of Harry Potter memorized. I see you guys don't believe me. It's literally how I learned how to speak English. when I was 13. Mr. and Mrs. Dursley of number 4 Privet Drive were proud to say they were perfectly normal, thank you very much. They were the last people you'd expect to be involved in anything strange or mysterious because it just didn't hold with such nonsense. And I can go for a very long time. But it made me obsessed with audiobooks. I listen to 2 audiobooks every single week, and I've done that for the last 15 years, more than 100 books a year. And, you know, you could probably guess I also have ADHD. And people think about ADHD as a deficit and a disorder. And the way I always think about it is if you have ADHD, it gives you the ability to hyperfocus. And so for me, yes, it's hard for me to sit still. It's hard for me to fall asleep. But I get so interested in things that I just want to go and solve them. And my biggest luck in my entire life is the parents that I was born to. Because I was raised with unconditional love, both between me and my siblings and between me and my parents. And then my teachers thought I was slow and my parents thought I was lazy. I thought I was awesome. I just needed to prove it to people. And so my dad didn't admire football players. He didn't admire people who had nice cars or nice watches. He admired people who read books. That was what in my house was considered wow. And I couldn't read books. And when I was 9 years old, my dad canceled my 9th birthday party because he found out I was lying to him about reading books. I'd figured out that my brother Tyler could read really well. So I would sit and I would listen to Tyler reading books, and I'd memorize the books. And then I'd show my dad I can read. On the faraway island of Solomon's Soul, Yertle the turtle was king of the pond. A nice little pond, it was clean, it was sweet. The water was warm, there was plenty to eat. The turtle has everything turtles might need, and they were quite happy indeed. And I did this for years until my parents realized that's what I was doing. So I just decided I would brute force my way through it. And instead of going out to play with friends, I grew up in Israel. In Passover break, I would sit and all I would do was read. I didn't watch television, and I would fall asleep in the library many, many days of the week. And then I moved to the United States, and I had to learn how to read in English from scratch. And I wasn't demoralized. I was motivated, because I already did this once. There's no way it could be harder than doing it the first time. Surprise, it was hard. And so I arrived in the US in 8th grade, right before high school, and I was in the bottom of the class. And I just I didn't know what to do, because we were assigned a chapter to read, and I couldn't read. And we were assigned to write an outline for this chapter, and I couldn't touch type. And so I went on the internet, and I found an audiobook of this book, the textbook. And I came to the teacher, his name was Mr. Bloom, and I said, Mr. Bloom, listen, I want to do the homework, but I can't. Would it be okay with you if I listened to the audiobook and I would come to school 15 minutes early every single day and I would give you a summary of the chapter because I can't write the outline? And he said, yes, that's okay. I'll come 15 minutes early too and you can give it to me. And so that's what I did. When I entered high school, I still couldn't read a summer reading book by myself, and the book was Marley and Me, which did not have an audiobook. And I tried my best to read this book and I did not succeed. And so in the 2 days before school started, my mom read Marley and Me to me. I didn't want to be the only kid who showed up in school not having read the book. I ended up going to Brown University for college in the US. I studied renewable energy engineering. And before I went to this fancy Ivy League school, I also did not succeed in reading our summer reading book, Sons of Providence. And my mom worked, and she didn't have to read an entire book to me. And so the night before I went to Brown, I had a real problem. About 30% of this book was left. So I did the only thing that I could. I coded a text-to-speech system for my computer that would read the book into it overnight, and then I listened to it on my iPhone on the flight there, and it worked. And surprise, I was the only kid who actually finished this book. When I was in college, I ended up building about 36 different products, everything from 3D printed skateboard brakes to iPhone apps and websites. I did more than 42 hackathons, but here's the problem. If you're dyslexic, coding is very, very hard because you misspell variables. And so if you spell house one way here and house another way here, everything breaks. And the first 8 hackathons I did without knowing how to code. I would just show up. I'm glad that's supported. I would jump on a table, and I'd pitch my idea to random people in the room. All right, great. Classic. I'd show up, and I did more user research than everybody else. I just talked to users because I couldn't code. But after the 8th hackathon, where the person who I partnered with did not continue working on the project, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to learn how to code. So I entered the computer science class at Brown, which was way harder than any coding I'd ever done before. And the first assignment took most people 3 hours to finish. It took me 15. And I decided that if I did not learn how to code, I would not be the person that I wanted to be. In the same way, when I was 8 and 9, I decided that if I did not learn how to read, I would not be the person that I wanted to be. And in my mind, I had a very clear vision of who I was. There's a guy I really admire. His name is Teddy Roosevelt. He was the president of the United States. And I modeled my life after Teddy Roosevelt. And this guy really wanted to be part of the Spanish-American War. And he was not allowed to be part of it because he's astigmatic. And so he, on his own, went and recruited a group called the Rough Riders, who were a bunch of Yale-educated equestrians and cowboys, and funded them to go to the war together, and he led this platoon. And you can imagine this guy with a big chest, with the flag of America, and I was like, and he also read a book a night, even while president. And I was like, I want to be like Teddy Roosevelt. And so if I can't read, I can't be like Teddy Roosevelt. If I can't code, modern day, I can't be like Teddy Roosevelt would be today. So I'm just going to learn how to do it. So I decided I'd brute force my way. So I would go to the computer science lab every single day at 9 in the morning, and I would stay there until midnight. And I would take a bag of 8 peanut butter sandwiches that I would make. I'd go to the dining hall, I'd make sure nobody sees me, and I just make all these peanut butter sandwiches, stuff it in my backpack, and I just sit in the computer science lab. The problem is that computer science labs run on Linux, typically, and Linux doesn't have text-to-speech, which is a big problem because I'm still not good at reading. So what I would do is I would come with my Mac, and I'd have a Mac over here and a computer over here, and I would text-to-speech stuff with this janky command line system I built that would read stuff out to me. And at this point, I had won a lot of scholarships because I built an automated system called Empower, where I hired 10 freelancers in the Philippines to find and apply to scholarships for me full-time. And then I automated the APIs on Upwork to hire more people, and I used Google Sheets to just automatically apply to more than 100 scholarships at a time. Today, this would be easier with ChatGPT. But it gave me time, and I got good at hiring people just by doing this type of thing. And I decided that I needed to be more technical. I wanted to be able to build iPhone apps and websites. So what I did is I found a video series by Rob Percival and Udemy called the Complete iOS Developer Course. It was 24 hours of video, and you built 19 projects, right? You build clones of Tinder and Instagram and YouTube and Google Maps. And on break, instead of going home, I would sit there, and I would look at what Rob Percival did on the computer, and then I would do the same thing on my computer. And I couldn't fail, because if I had a bug, I'd just make sure that it's the same. And then I took the same type of course in building websites. And then I graduated. And I graduated with a degree in renewable energy engineering. Most of my work was I'd build hydro systems. I'd build fabricate solar panels and boron dope them. I'd work on some nuclear stuff. And I took a lot of design classes at RISD, which is a design school by Brown. And all my friends were getting jobs at Google and Goldman Sachs and McKinsey. And I thought to myself, wow, I don't want that to be me. I went to one Goldman Sachs event, and I asked the guy, hey, why do you work here? Are these the smartest people we've ever met? Are you working on things that you're really excited about? What is it? And he's like, well, the compensation's really good. And I was like, bye. So I didn't get a job when I graduated college. And I also didn't start a master's. I was a weirdo. I stayed on campus, and I convinced 2 of my professors to sponsor me to be a visiting scholar, which I found this term in the bio of the Brown University Constitution. So I got a student ID, I got a student email, I stayed on a meal plan, I lived on campus, and I would vagabond classes. So I would audit classes I was not part of. And I would just build products. And eventually I just wrote this 30-page paper about my worldviews. And my conclusion after this entire paper was the reason I am the person that I am is because I listened to more than 1,000 books by the time I was 22 via audiobooks, and because I had the experience of overcoming dyslexia when I was young. And I developed a system called brute forcing. If something doesn't go my way, I will try everything in my power, and if I don't find a solution, I will just brute force it. There was a pitch competition here earlier. I did a pitch competition in my second week of school at Brown. At the time, I built a 3D printed skateboard brick, and I learned the winner was going to get $1,000. It was a 1-minute pitch. So what I did for the 3 days before this event is I researched who won this event in the past 10 years. And I messaged every single one of them on Facebook, and I got them on the phone with me, and I told them Tell me how you won. And I dedicated 24 hours before this event to just practicing that pitch. And my thesis was that no one would be stupid enough to work for 24 hours on a 1-minute pitch. Turns out there was one other guy, his name is Max Deutsch. He became my best friend. And so that was like my entire system. And so I decided that the only thing that it made sense for me to build, because around 2015, deep learning started to get really interesting, especially narrow applications of deep learning, was an auditory operating system that could read out anything to me. And I'm really into philosophy, especially Malthus and utilitarianism. And I realized that I get a tremendous amount of joy from increasing the utilities of value in someone else's life. But the more similar that person is to me, the more joy I get. And so I started off thinking, I'm going to build mobile banking in India, or like more renewable energy infrastructure in Africa. But I realized, A, other people were going to work on that anyway. B, I couldn't see these people in front of my face, and I really loved living in the United States at the time. But I realized there was a population that was underserved, people like me who had dyslexia and ADHD and other learning challenges. And no matter how much money you have, if you're hard of sight, you can wear glasses. If you have ADHD, you can take Ritalin or Adderall. If you have dyslexia, you just suffer. So I was going to solve that problem. But I wasn't that great at coding still. I was like good enough to be dangerous, but not good enough to be amazing. So I committed that every single day I would code for 5 hours. I used a software called Rescue Time on my computer, and I made a bet with several of my friends. It wasn't an official bet. I just had a thread with all the people I admired. Valentin Perez, Max Deutsch, Tyler Weitzman. And I committed, I'm going to code 5 hours every single day on Xcode, and I'm going to send you a screenshot. And if I don't, I have to do 200 pull-ups and 300 push-ups by 9 a.m. the next morning. And so I got good at working out. And then I would set big goals, like I'm going to post a website with the ability to pay for a pre-ordered version of Speechify by this date on 3 Reddit groups and 3 Facebook groups. And if I miss it, I will run 10 miles that weekend. And I only had to do this 4 times, the running. The rest of the times I actually did the things I said I was going to do. So I got pretty good at coding. And then I started visiting schools for people with learning differences. And I would sit in the back of the class, and if anybody had an issue, I would go to their computer and I'd help them fix it. And I talked to thousands of kids like me who had dyslexia. And I figured out that no matter how smart you think you are when you design software, people will figure out how to not use it correctly. But also that there are so many edge cases across different computers, different phones. So I didn't only build a Mac app. I built a Chrome extension, and an iPhone app, and an Android app, and eventually an API and an SDK. And we got to the point that people were using Speechify to listen to more than 100 million words per month. If I wanted to be like my dad and be the person who does that reading, I'd need to not eat, not sleep, and duplicate myself a couple of 10,000 times. But last year, people started to listen to more than 1 billion words per month with Speechify. By the end of that year, people listened to more than 5 billion words per month with Speechify. And last month, people listened to 7 billion words with Speechify. So you might be asking, Cliff, wow, when you had this idea, how long did you think it would take until you had like 1 million users? And so there's a talk just like this at a school that I gave. Someone asked me that question. And I said, I think it'll take 3 months. It took more than 3 years. So here's the key. In college, I learned how to build a lot of products in a lot of different areas. But what I didn't learn is how to build something that lasts. And so the thing I learned is if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with a team. And so if you're a founder, your main role is to learn. You learn how to code, you learn how to design, you learn how to talk to users, you learn how to monetize. But if you're a CEO, you have 3 roles. Make sure there's enough money in the bank, set the vision, and put the right people in the right seats. And that's the most important part, is put the right people in the right seats. So I went and did that. I hired a senior engineer from Apple, I hired a senior engineer from Snapchat, and within 3 months, they had messed up the entire code base. Because they built it like we were Apple. We were not Apple. In startups, one book I highly recommend is The Lean Startup, which is like the Bible for Silicon Valley. It's how to build minimum viable products. The key is you build and then you ship, and then you build and then you ship, and you try to do that within a 24-hour iteration cycle, and then you talk to users. The most important thing I ever did at Speechify was I made a gigantic button, like literally 20% of the screen in the bottom right corner, and it said, message us, exclamation point. And if you clicked it, it put you in an iMessage conversation with me directly. And that was there until we had about 10 million users. And at a certain point, I had Simon join, so it was like a chat with me, Simon, and another person. Both Simon and my iMessage just stopped working because we overloaded Apple's system, and we needed to get a special exception to erase all our past text messages for iMessage to work for us. And then we hired a customer success team. And so, Cliff, how do you hire people? Great question. So the first person that I hired that stuck with me for life is this guy called Simeon Kostarinov. I was born in Israel, and more than 1,000 miles away in Bulgaria was born Simon. Simon was ranked #1 in math in high school. He wrote a textbook on neural networks. But before this, we met on Facebook. And he was part of a group called Hackathon Hackers Europe. I don't know anyone who knew Simon before we started working together. All good? I don't know anyone who knew Simon before we started working together. But this man became my brother. And he messaged me and said, hey, I'm seeing you're working on this project. Like, can I help? And I was like, yeah. And he was going to Birmingham University, by the way. And all he wanted to do was build startups. And he went to his advisor in computer science and said, hey, I want to go to America and build projects in America. And the advisor laughed at him, and he said, even I will have trouble going to get a job in America. Get an internship here. And Simon went back home. He's like, I'm going to figure it out somehow. And he did exactly the same things that I do. He messaged a lot of people. One of them was me. And so I was like, yeah, of course you can help. Well, do you know like how to build iPhone apps? And he's like, no. Do you know how to build Mac apps? He's like, no. Do you know web design? He's like, yeah. Okay, awesome. Here's a sketch of what I want to build for our website. I'm going to go to sleep. I woke up in the morning, it was done. He had stayed up all night and rebuilt the website. It was amazing. I was like, wow. He's like, how else can I help? And I'm like, well, I want to hire all these iOS engineers and you can't code iOS. So here, let's share, at the time it was Skype. Let's share screen with Skype. And I showed him how I went to Medium and LinkedIn and GitHub and looked for good engineers. And I made him a new email address, cliffweitzman1@gmail.com. And I filled the first 10 people in this Google Sheet. And when I woke up in the morning, the Google Sheet had 100 people in it, and he had emailed all of them. So eventually I got him a visa, I got him an apartment, I moved him out to San Francisco. Simon now has a green card and is on the path to being a US citizen. He started as an iOS intern. Actually, not even, he started as my assistant. He became an iOS intern. Then he became an iOS engineer. Then he became head of iOS. Then he became head of engineering at Speechify. Then he became head of recruiting at Speechify, and now he's COO of Speechify. I just can't say enough good things about this human being. So I'm not going to try. Okay, so that's one useful thing to know. Now, there's two really big things I want you guys to get out of this talk, and hopefully you're starting to get them. The first one is to give you the confidence to believe that anything you want to make, you can. And anything you want to learn, you can. And there's nothing standing in your way of doing that, literally nothing. Because within any human-ran system, there is always a way to circumnavigating an obstacle by going to the top of the governance structure and asking for a special exception. We don't have time, but if you Google Cliff Weitzman laptop video, you'll see a video of how I find my laptop after it was stolen, and it took me about 10 hours. And it was all just like plowing through systems that are stupid, but brute force. The second thing I want you to get out of this talk is if you're sitting there and you're thinking to yourself, I'm a university right now, or I'm about to graduate. I want to build a company that's doing hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue within the next 4 years. What should I do? That's the thing I want to give you guys. So I'm going to pause for a second. There's a bunch of other personal stories that I can say, but I want to take the temperature in the room before I do that. So quick, who wants to start a company in the audience? Cool. Who wants to be an early teammate or executive in a company? Cool. And then I'm going to pick up 3 questions that I'll address, and then I'll ask more questions at the end. Any specific questions so far? If not, I'm just going to keep going. Yes?
What are the biggest challenges you faced?
Great question. Second question. Yes?
How old are you?
I'm 28. Third question. Yes?
If you decide some deadline for the modules, for the project.
Yeah.
And if not meet, with your team members or some coincidence.
Yes.
So how you handle it?
Great. Okay. So I'm going to keep going. I'm going to answer these two as part of it. I'm going to start with what's been your biggest challenge. I'm going to keep the talk going, and then I'll open up to questions later. The hardest time we ever had at Speechify was about 2 years in. We had users, we were making revenue, but the retention of the users was not good enough. And I had these engineers that I had hired, and it didn't make sense to keep going together. We parted ways, and it went back down to just me and Simon. And I was demoralized. And I had this thing that I was doing, which I'd go to Stanford University, and I just cold approach people on the campus. I was like, hey, I have an app. Can you try out my app? And they'd be like, sure. And then it feels like getting punched in the stomach over and over because they keep clicking the wrong buttons, and the app keeps having bugs, and it's like people telling me your baby is ugly to your face. And I just get battered emotionally by this. And the retention was not good. So what I decided to do is I just like sat down for 3 days, and every day I called 100 users. I had their emails, so I would FaceTime audio call them. And it drew all the energy away from me. And Simon was there just like massaging my back, like giving me cookies, being like, just like, one more call, man, one more call, one more call. And by the end of that, I realized two things. One, we had a lot of bugs that we really needed to fix, but I had a sheet of all the bugs on every device. And number two, though people were mad, people needed the product. If you have dyslexia, there is no other alternative. You have to use something like this. And so we had people who were 70 years old, people who were 7 years old, people who were 17 years old, who were all using Speechify. And they tell me, fuck you, your product's horrible, fix it, because I have a final right now and I hate you, and why is it not working? Not, I'm gonna give up and like go use something different. Because it's the only thing that they could use, because their mom probably also had to work. That was the hardest part. But actually, now that I think about it, there was an even harder part. It was 2019. 2019, crypto was booming, and I helped a couple of friends raise ICOs, initial coin offerings. A lot of money. And I was like, damn, I could make a lot of money doing this. And so I was living in San Francisco. I had these 2 windows in my apartment, and I started writing with a marker, ICO, Speechify. And I was trying to decide what to work on. And I read a lot of books. And first of all, don't invest in crypto unless you actually understand, cryptography. And I believed in crypto. I just didn't think it would be useful for the world for the next 10 years. But there was a lot of money there. And then I wrote about this, and I went back and reread that 30-page paper that I wrote. And I realized that what I really believed in will create real value is narrow applications of deep learning. So deep learning basically works very similarly to how the human brain works, right? It's called the neural network. And you can use it for speech synthesis, optical character recognition, transcription, translation, natural language processing, recommendation engines. And I was like, this is gonna get so much better over the next 7 years that I should just build Speechify on all these different platforms, and the second it's ready, boom, I'm just gonna plug it in. And I also saw how people change their behavior around audio, right? Like, raise your hand if you listen to audiobooks. Raise your hand if you listen to podcasts. All right, we covered about like 90% of the room. If I was here 5 years ago, I'd get maybe like 25% of you to raise your hands. Who listens at more than 1x speed? Whoa, you guys are missing out. I'm just gonna give you one example. This is how I listen to everything. So the reason I can listen to so many audiobooks is I listen to most of them at between 2.5 and 3x speed. And most Americans read at 200 words per minute. Most people who use Speechify, day one are listening at 240 words per minute. 30 days in, they're listening at 350 words per minute. I listen to everything at 750 words per minute. And my comprehension is 100%. And if you made me listen to something at 200 words per minute, I would want to jump out the window. It's like the worst experience ever. The best way I can give you an example is imagine you watched a YouTube video or a movie and the people spoke like this the entire time. So, turns out that you can teach yourself how to listen fast. All you need to do is try, right? So if you download Speechify and you just like use the automatic speed ramping algorithm, it'll coach you how to listen fast. Or just open Spotify or open Audible, or most importantly, open Speechify, download a couple of books, and listen at 2x speed. It'll absolutely change your life. So that's the thing that I realized, and I was like reading all these things that I read before, and I realized that audio is the most important shift in how people consume information. And so the cross-section between narrow applications of deep learning and audio was the most fruitful place for me to build stuff, and if I was gonna build something in that area, it might as well be Speechify. So I doubled down on working on Speechify. And then I kept hiring. So when we were 25 people, 18 of the folks at the company were previously either CEO, CTO, or VP of engineering at the company that beforehand. I learned how to hire better people. And the key was don't hire like people who worked at Facebook or Google or like any of these other companies. Go hire people who had built actual products that talked to actual users that moved really, really fast. Today, there's more than 20 countries where there's folks who work on Speechify. And the reason that is we don't think that all smart people happen to be living in the Bay Area in California, right? We think that there's smart people everywhere. So we just have an extremely rigorous technical test that we put people through. And then if they pass it, we'll do literally anything to hire people. So I on a regular, yeah, listen at double speed. I love it. Also, if you're a student and you don't have Speechify either on the Mac app or a Chrome extension, you're missing out. It's like the best way to pass the study. So on a regular basis, I'll fly to like Ukraine or India or China or Vietnam just to recruit people who I think are amazing because the value of having one person on your team who is like absolutely phenomenal is more valuable than anything you could do with that day or 2 days in the rest of your life in terms of building a company. So we talked about how to learn how to build iOS app and how to build websites. We didn't talk about ads. I'm gonna talk about ads for 1 second. Cool. So, hey, Cliff, I built an awesome product. People using it, they're willing to pay for it. How do I get a lot of people to use it? Great question. In 2020, I didn't know the answer to this question. So what I did is I made a list of the top 100 best performing consumer subscription companies in the world. Grammarly, Audible, Reflectly, Lightrix, Netflix. And I messaged every CEO, every head of growth, every CMO on every platform. LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, you name it. And I just would not stop messaging until they responded, until all of them got on a Zoom call with me one by one. And then I'd make friends with them on the Zoom call. And then I'd fly to wherever they are in the world. So I'd go to Denmark and I'd talk to the CEO of Reflectly. Or I'd go to Richard Branson's island and talk to him about how they market Virgin. Or I'd fly to Canada and talk to the founder of Lululemon. Or I'd have a call with the CMO of Airbnb or Netflix. And I learned how they ran ads. And then I just cataloged all the best creators on YouTube and other places. And I just went and lived in their house for a week and saw how they made content. And then we became really good at running ads. So in 2020, Speechify accounted for 2.75% of all mobile ad spend on Facebook in North America. In 2021, we were the 10th biggest mobile spender on YouTube. In 2022, we became one of the fastest growing SEO traffic websites in the world. Hopefully by the end of this year, I'll figure out TikTok. Yet to be resolved. And then in these conversations, I kept learning more and more and more. And one of the things I learned was from the guy who was the CMO of Netflix. I realized something really important. They didn't advertise the brand Netflix. They would advertise the titles, right? Orange is the New Black, House of Cards. And I thought to myself, it's challenging because with Speechify, I have this incredible voice that reads stuff out to people. And it makes it really easy to learn fast, retain really well. 30% of the usage is Google Docs. 20% is Gmail. People are reading PDFs. They're scanning physical documents with computer vision stuff. But unless you have a document in mind in the beginning, it's difficult to get activated. So what if we sold audiobooks on Speechify? And at the same time, I saw that of the top 100 websites people use Speechify for when it lets you read the internet, 27 of those websites were indie author websites or fan fiction websites. So I was like, let's sell audiobooks. So it took a long time, but we got the top 8 publishers in the United States to allow us to resell their audiobooks. So now, we are the only company other than Audible in the United States that have an audiobook-based subscription that you can buy. And Audible has become a monopoly at this point. And so the cool part is we just released a product 45 days ago. It's faster than Audible. It lets you listen and read the text at the same time. It lets you listen faster. It lets you take notes. It is cheaper than Audible. And the audio quality is better. And so that's been amazing because a lot of people have started to use that product. And Audible has I can't even start to explain how many users. Let alone Kindle. And so there's a thing that you'll notice if you read a lot of history, which is it's a common thing where people will build something for folks with disabilities, like the telephone, for people who are hard of hearing. And then it becomes something that everybody else starts to use. And so today, about 35% of our users have some sort of learning difference, but most of them don't. They just use it because they can listen a lot faster than they can read, and they can comprehend better, and they can walk around and still consume information at the same time. Cool. I think I answered the specific questions you guys asked. So I'm going to talk about one thing that I really care about, which is principles, and then I'm going to open it up to questions. So someone asked the previous speaker, what is the one thing that you wish you knew before starting a company? Tell me the secret. So I can tell you the secret. The secret is read books. That is the #1 place where I've learned everything. When I want to learn how to run operations, how to run recruiting, how to code, how to do ads, I read 100 books about the topic. And then I make a list of the 100 best people at that thing in the world, and I befriend them, and I learn from them. I figure out how to get to the cutting edge. The amount that I've learned from listening to fantasy audiobooks, I'm challenged to explain this. So Harry Potter is not what we call an OP character in fantasy. OP means overpowered character. Overpowered characters have a very similar characteristic to what I described before. They know how to brute force their way through things. You know who the best character in Harry Potter is? Hermione Granger, obviously. Hermione knows how to brute force her way through things, right? If she's a muggle and she needs to go to a school for wizards, she'll change the memory of her parents if she needs to keep them protected. right? She can get like Victor Crumb to go with her to the Hogwarts version of prom. And when Harry and like Ron are idiots, she's the one that keeps stuff together. But there's a lot of out of the fantasy audiobooks, specifically those written by Brandon Sanderson. Kaladin is my favorite character, who don't give up no matter what. So I highly recommend a book called The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. The main character's name is Kaladin, and I model my life after Kaladin. And the gist is he's a slave. He's sold into this army. Everybody in his platoon dies, like on a regular basis. So he decides, instead of committing suicide, he is just going to make sure that these people don't die. And he like does everything in his power to do this. And so at Speechify, we have 4 core principles. Extreme product quality, we talk to users a ton. Leading with love. I have 4 younger siblings. I love them more than anything else in the world. I treat the rest of my team like that. But I also look at how Kaladin treats the rest of his teammates in The Way of Kings. And speed. We move faster than any other company I've ever seen. We deploy fast, we hire fast, we run ads quickly, and we do as many iterations as possible. And then we focus on learning. Like, you're not, everybody, there's no managers at Speechify. There's not a concept. Even if you are a manager and there's 25 people reporting into you, you're still spending at least 20% of your time hands on keyboard implementing. And so someone asked before, if you have a really tough deadline and you're working with the rest of your team, and you need to motivate them to be part of that deadline, what do you do? How do you do that? And there's 2 sides to the spectrum. The first side is Steve Jobs style. I do not like Steve Jobs. I think Steve Jobs is a dick. Definitely not the guy I want to be. But Steve Jobs is a UX, UI genius, and he saw the future, and he knew how to bring the best out of people. There's a way of doing that without being a dick. There's the Theodore Roosevelt style, the Kaladin style, where you're willing to sleep on the dirt with your men. You're going to be the very first person in front of the platoon, and if you get shot first before anybody else. Even as president, Theodore Roosevelt would leave the White House if he heard that someone from the Rough Riders was sick or ill or their family was not taken care of. And so, a manager is not a person who tells other people what to do. Sounds like a Speechify audiobook to me. Good, we're having good conversion in the audience. A leader, so we say leadership at Speechify is not given, it is earned, right? If you are the best individual contributor, you end up leading the team because you're moving the fastest, you're supporting other people, you're teaching other people. And so that's how you inspire other people in your team to work towards crazy goals. So one good example is I wanted our ads team to make better ads. And we were making decent ads, but they were not inspired. So I sat down and I wrote a rap song about my experience with dyslexia. And if people ask, I'll show you guys later. This did like tens of millions of views and like drove millions of dollars in conversions for us. And the thing is, like, the best ad that we had done before that was like a slapstick humor ad. And it was hilarious. But it was not the brand that I wanted to espouse. I wanted, basically, what I really wanted, I wanted Speechify to stand for 2 things. The first one is I wanted to be able to go to any classroom in the world, any office, and say, hey, my name is Cliff, I have dyslexia. Anybody here struggle with reading or is a second language learner of English? If you are, raise your hand. And then, oh, that's awesome. And then, yeah, you can raise your hand. And then I wanted to say, have you heard of Speechify? And then see, by the way, who has heard of Speechify before I walk into this room? Okay, sweet. Have you used Speechify? Wow, that's amazing. Thank you, guys. And I wanted all the hands to be able to stay up. So I'm at like 21% conversion right now. Cool, 21 conversions is basically all the people who have dyslexia and ADHD in the room. The beautiful part is now we have a lot of people who don't have learning differences who are using it. So hopefully I can come back in here in like 2-3 years and the entire room is raising their hands. Because it's cool to have 25 million users, but we know what's cooler? 2.5 billion. And so that's what we're working towards. So you asked what's the goal? That's the goal. Everybody in the company knows that's what we're working towards. And so when I started making the song, I'm very good at lyrics, and I'm decent with music. And I'm okay with like editing software, but I'm not amazing. We had this really great videographer working with us in the Philippines. And so we started working on it. We did like 2-3 iterations. It was just not getting to where I wanted to be. It was 3 a.m. my time. And I was like, Arjun, I'm going to stick with you until this is done. And he's like, but Cliff, it's 3 a.m. your time. I'm like, it doesn't matter. And I just stayed on that Zoom call until 10 a.m. the next morning until it was done. And this is exactly how I ran the iOS team when I led the iOS team, and how I ran the web team when I ran the web team. Like, I'm putting my heart front and center. And don't get me wrong, sleeping is very important. There's other ways of doing this. That's how you motivate your team. And then, when they do amazing work, you tell them that they're doing amazing work. You compensate them aggressively, which is what we do, both in terms of cash and equity. And you make sure that everything else that they are working with is the smartest person they have ever met in their life. That's how you build a great team and motivate that team to do excellent things. But it starts with you. And so the way that I think about it is, probably everybody here knows Jay-Z. Right? Jay-Z is more wealthy than Beyonce, not because he's a better artist, but it's because he has a music label. So why do all the artists want to be part of Jay-Z's music label? It's because Jay-Z is always trying to make himself better. And this is very well known in the music industry. So that's the answer. The second answer, the dovetails with books. If you want to have a great startup, just make yourself great first. Like, read a lot, help other people, lead with love, and then everything else follows. So I'm just going to give like a 5, 6 countdown of the principles, and then I'm going to open it up to questions. But before I do that, audiobooks are now live with Speechify. There's like more than 200,000 audiobooks on there. But it's only for the US. So you can change the setting of your phone to the US, and then you can use audiobooks. You can use the high-quality text-to-speech voices instead. Okay, so 1, be bold, don't suffer, right? If something sucks, ask how can I fix this, and then read a lot of books, talk to a lot of people, and then try things that other people have not tried. And so what I did for every single department in Speechify is I rewrote the blueprint, and then I hired someone who was better than me at running that blueprint, and then I moved on to the next section. 2, handle your fear. So my really big fear when I graduated college was, what if I do a startup and I fail? And I won't be able to get this job at Goldman Sachs, and I won't be able to get this job at Google. And I caught myself one day opening up my computer and starting an application for a product manager role at Google. And I was sitting on my friend's couch at Stanford, and I kind of like got up. I put the computer away. I like kind of looked at myself, like stepped out of my body. And I went, what the hell are you doing? Like, why are you doing this? Why are you taking the shortcut to the thing that you don't want? And then I sat down and I wrote out my fears. So my fear was that I will fail. And so, okay, what happens if you fail? Let's assume I can't get the job at Google. Let's assume I can't support myself. What do I do? Well, I'll go back home and I can sleep in my old room. But maybe my parents will be so ashamed that their son doesn't have a job after college that they will not let me stay at home. Okay, fine. So I got a couple of friends. They'll let me sleep on their couch maybe for a week at a time. I can rotate. And worst comes to worst, I'll go work as an iOS developer for $30 an hour on Upwork. And I was like, but realistically, if I go and try to build a startup, Google will want to hire me even more. So it doesn't make sense to take the shortcut to the thing that you don't want. Number 3, choose when to go ham or when to brute force your way through things. Because in life, if you have a challenge, there's always a situation where there's option A and option B. But there's also option C and option D that people generally do not consider are possible. And they take a tremendous amount of work and sometimes luck. But if the situation is important enough, only accept these 2. Don't go for option A or B. Good example is going into college, not being very good at reading, and either saying, hey, it's fine, I'll just read slowly. Or saying, no, fuck that. I want to be Teddy Roosevelt. I'm just going to solve the problem. By the way, Teddy Roosevelt was a speed reader and had a didactic memory. He could read an entire book in a night, and the way that he would do it as president is, you would hold a book, and you would flip a page, and you would read both the first side and the second one, and then tear the page out of the book. And there'd be like a husk of the book left at the end of this experience. And then you could go to the poet who wrote it initially and quote it back to them in German, or whatever the original language is. I wanted to be Teddy Roosevelt, so I figured out how to build a hack that would let me listen faster, because I can't read very well. There's no situation in your life where you can't solve it like that. It just requires being really creative and then brute forcing your way through. There's always a way to circumnavigate an obstacle within any human-around system. It's just worthwhile to persevere. And the last thing I'll say is the importance of fleshing out your tree of knowledge or mental model of the universe. So if you think about Google Maps, you can go in some places and they're really pixelated, and some places and they're really fresh, and you can see everything. And I kind of think about this like your tree of knowledge, right? When you're in elementary school and middle school, you kind of like build the trunk and you learn from your parents, and then when you go to college, you kind of build the branches. And every book that you read is like a new leaf of information. And if you have a branch there, the leaf sticks. But if you don't have a branch there, the leaf floats away. And so for that reason, it actually makes a lot of sense to reread books sometimes, because it fleshes out your mental model of the universe. And the better your information, the better your decision making. And so when I had to sit there and decide crypto or AI, the reason I decided AI was I had more information than most people. And it's because I read a lot, and it's because I wrote a lot. And so in my mind, thinking is actually the most important thing, right? If you think about a vector in physics, it has a magnitude and it has a direction. And the direction is more important than the magnitude. And so the decisions you make are what makes you successful, essentially. And so don't sleep on that, right? Even now, with the current situation that Speechify is in, I am sending at least 10 cold emails a day to people who I want to message. And often they happen at 3 in the morning. And so always, always, always be honing this. And at a certain point, books stop being very effective, but talking to people becomes very, very effective. And so hone that mental model of the universe, and if you want to make really good decisions, the way to really do it is either talk to someone who you perceive as smarter than you and let them just shoot down your ideas, which I try to find these people all the time, or write. Just write with a notebook and a pen, or inside of Apple Notes on your computer. It is the #1 thing that I've found leads to clear thinking. And most importantly, read books. Thank you, guys. I'll open up the questions.
So we don't have a lot of time for questions, so the idea would be to go in the networking area, and if you guys have questions for Cliff, you can ask them there.
So what I'll do is this. Anyone who wants to go to networking, feel free. I'm going to take like 5 questions, and then I'm going to wrap it up. Question number 1. Yes? Startup costs, great question. So I used a tool called Paperplane that let me host the original website for Speechify. It was $10. I used Stripe. Stripe takes 3% of credit card processing. There was a room at Brown that let you take videos for kind of free. So I went to that room and I just like pitched Speechify over and over and over again until the camera. And then I took this video, I took Paperplane, I took Stripe, and I allowed people to pre-order Speechify for $100 on the website. I posted it on 3 Facebook groups, 3 Reddit groups, and about 100 people pre-ordered the product. And I did all the original coding. I hired this one Russian on Upwork to help me build the original Mac app. He disappeared at a certain point. So I just like kept grinding on my own, and that's kind of where we started. Question down here. What a great question. So I spend millions of dollars a month on marketing. The beautiful thing about Speechify is we're extremely technical. In marketing, there's basically 2 paths. You could be extremely creative, or you can be extremely mathy. I found it extremely difficult to hire someone to head marketing. I keep not succeeding. It's horrible. You need someone who has both, and those people are typically founders. By the way, copywriting is the most valuable skill here. Can almost never find a good copywriter, because all good copywriters are either PMs or they're founders. So what did I do? I built, with the backend platform team at Speechify, the most robust attribution model for ads I've seen in any company. We never buy against LTV, lifetime value of a user. We always buy against first payment period. Speechify is a subscription, $140 after a 3-day trial. We know every single time that if a user is going to pay us on Stripe, we're going to have a CAC, cost of customer acquisition, of $95 or less, and we make $140. And if the user buys us on iOS, they're going to pay us $87 or less. So we're just always going to make money. That's 1. 2. The way to make ads that work is you want to, 1, use user-generated content. So we have 100 TikTokers who work with us. We pay them like $60 a week each, and they give us 3 organic videos that they made about Speechify and relation. We have 3 creative editors that edit those into ads, and we'll test like 100+ ads a week. And we just like see which ones have the best CTR, click-through rate. Recently, once again, I got annoyed. Our ads were not as great as I wanted to. So Lori's been helping me do TikTok. And we had in the last 2.5 weeks, 1 video hit like 670K, 3 videos passed 300K, and 5 videos passed 120K. And then we reposted those TikToks into Instagram Reels, which has better attribution than TikTok. And those have had like 8% click-through rate, which is like insane, right? Industry best is like 1%. Cool. Well, talk to you soon. And so I'll tell you why I haven't. Well, the answer to TikTok. So, do you know who Mr. Beast is? Yeah. Great. So we became really good friends. And then I went and like slept over at his house for a week, and then I did it again. And then after this, I'm actually going to stay in Arak's house, who is another big YouTuber and TikToker. And I just like will go and find the people who are the best and just like study them. And so the amount that Jimmy will spend on like the first 10 seconds of the video is absolutely insane to me. And so there's just not enough. Basically, the first image is the most important thing, the first 1080p. And then the first seconds, and then you go from there, and you want to be engaging, and you want to be relatable. So that's one thing that I did not get in TikTok. I was making videos that are similar to like this type of talk, maybe like educational and funny. No, you need to be vulnerable. That's the thing that works. Yes? Do you have an affiliation program in place? We have an affiliate program for Speechify, yes. You can make $50 to $70 if you refer someone and they buy. Yes? Yes? One book recommendation, other than The Way of Kings. So if you go Medium, Cliff Weitzman, you'll find like my favorite books of all time. The biography of Arnold Schwarzenegger, Total Recall. I ended up writing a rap album about the life of Arnold Schwarzenegger because it was that good. Yes.
How do you manage your time?
Great question. I'm addicted to Google Calendar. Without it, I would die. At certain points, I find that I'm frustrated that I'm not doing enough. So what I do is I make a Google Sheet. It's broken out by 30-minute increments. And after every day, I look at my calendar, and I just like write what I did in that time. And it'll be categories: time with loved ones, time on music, time on fitness, optimizing SEO, coding, whatever. And I'll color code it, and then I'll see how much time did I spend on each one of these categories. So I've done these audits maybe like 4 or 5 times. I find typically the category that like spills over is time spent helping other people. And so I always have to like just decide to whittle them down. There's 5 things that I need in my life to be like ecstatically happy. And I genuinely am one of the happiest people I've ever met. And the reason is that these pillars I don't compromise on. The first one is listening to audiobooks. The second one is working out. The third one is writing music. The fourth one is spending time with people that I love. And the fifth one, I forgot what it is, but it's definitely not sleeping. I'll remember later. And I often find that when I'm unhappy, it's because I'm not listening to enough audiobooks. So then I'll have a conversation with people around me. So for example, one of them happened because I used to have a commute and I stopped the commute. Oh, it was time on gymnastics. I used to stop the commute and I stopped the commute. And so I made a deal with the person I was commuting with. Hey, for this hour, can we just like listen to audiobooks? And they were like, sure. And my happiness skyrocketed. I hate recurring meetings. There's no recurring meetings on my calendar for the most part. If you need me, everybody in the company has my WhatsApp, and they should call me at any given point. And if I can't answer, I will answer as soon as I'm out of the meeting. And right now, the thing I struggle with the most is my job is a little bit too leveraged. I do too much leadership. Thank God I'm not doing management, I'm doing leadership. But I don't do enough work as an IC, an individual contributor. And so I'm getting a lot of joy from stuff like writing music and making TikToks because I can actually contribute real time. Yes?
Does the voices?
Sorry?
Does the voices?
Snoop Dogg is a voice. Gwyneth Paltrow is a voice. Like, David Attenborough is a voice. Like, all the voices that you wish were there. And so, one awesome thing is so my brother Tyler started coding when he was 9, building Dragon Ball Z websites. He taught himself assembly in 5th grade. He built 47 apps by the time he was 17. And then he did maths undergrad at Stanford, raised a ton of money for an amazing cybersecurity company. And then did his master's in AI, and then eventually we succeeded in convincing him to join Speechify last year. He built an incredible model. So GPT, you all know ChatGPT, stands for General Pre-trained Transformer. So transformers were like the biggest innovation in deep learning, and then this algorithm is like the second big innovation. And so for voice generation for Speechify, actually I can't talk about this, never mind. Anyway, the voices are getting a lot better. And pretty soon you'll be able to record yourself and have your voice read anything to you in extremely high quality based on like 2 minutes of audio.
Thank you, Cliff.
Yes,
we're a little bit running out of time.
Yes, question over there. Brute force your way, yes. Oh, when am I going to drop my album? I'll stand here later and I will show you a song or two. But I have, sorry? I'll perform now. If you know what, when people go to networking, we'll put on some music and I'll perform. I have 8 that I've written, 2 that are published. I just need to finish the other ones. And then there were 2 more. Yes. Yes, okay. Yeah, all you.
First of all, did anyone got phones you like? Secondly, have you written a book, and if so, what speech do I read it and listen to it?
Have I written a book? Yeah. I have not written a book. So the way that I got Speechify to get popular in the beginning is I wrote a book publicly online about my experience with dyslexia. If you go to Cliff Weitzman Facebook, you can find it probably. And so it was like 29 chapters, and they all linked to each other, and I posted them in different Facebook groups. But it's mainly if you're a mom of a kid with dyslexia. But I have a very active YouTube channel. So if you go Cliff Weitzman YouTube, there's like 1 million videos there, and I give talks like this a lot. I stopped charging for these talks a while ago. It's just, it makes me happy, so I do them. And yeah, I would recommend checking that in my Medium. It's like all the stuff you get in a book, it's just like a lot more condensed. But you should use Speechify to listen to it, and I recommend listening at 450 words per minute. Yes? I hope you don't work at McKinsey.
But I meant your company is growing, and how you manage not to become some kind of company like this?
What a great question. All right, so here's a weird thing. I move every 5 months. So I am leaving London, sadly, in like a couple of days. I've been here for about 6 months. Before that, I lived in New York. Before that, I lived in Miami. Before that, I lived in SF. Before that, I lived in LA. And I'll just go around the world. 7 of us from the leadership team in Speechify all live in the same house. We'll rent like a giant house and all work out of the house. And then we have teammates all around the world, and I will just like fly and work with those people. We are remote first. There's no like central office. It just happens to be that we love each other and we want to live together. That is the thing I'm most grateful for in my life, other than my family, is the people who I get to work with and that I get to live with. And I do not want to have an office for this exact reason. The other thing is, both to my detriment and to my benefit, I still consider myself a kid. Like, there's so much things for me to learn. I like definitely am not an adult, and I will not be for a while. And so that's one thing that I'm writing a lot about and reading a lot about, is trying to figure out like that dynamic. All right, I'm gonna take 2 more, and then I'm gonna pause, and people are gonna go outside.
We have also.
I appreciate it, but you asked me to come here, so I'm gonna do what I want now. 2 more people to ask me questions, and then I can pause. Yes. I'm gonna ask you to get out of the way, please. Yes, my partner is Lori over there. Lori is extremely compassionate, empathetic, and understands that I'm a weirdo. So that's the key. I'm sorry? Jeff Bezos has a really good line. It's not work-life balance, it's work-life harmony. And so one of the things that we do at Speechify is you don't need to work a 9 to 5, right? And the time zones are everywhere. We hate meetings. So unless you're actively coding with somebody else on a Zoom call, screen sharing, there's no reason for a meeting. And so I go to sleep late. I wake up late, like 9, 10 a.m. I work out in the middle of the day. I'll go to do gymnastics. But I'm also working at night. And so you just gotta like figure out what the swings. And then I think in partnerships, often one of the things that I find most inspiring, I see this in my parents, they work together. And you know, they've been married for almost 30 years now. And it's the best marriage I've ever witnessed. And yes, they get on each other's nerves too, but like he is her biggest cheerleader and she's his biggest cheerleader, and they complete each other. And so if you're able to work together, that's like a really powerful thing. Last question, then we're gonna pause and let people go. If there's not a last one, I will.
Okay, one last.
Okay.
At what stage in your entrepreneurial journey you start doing this job?
I started doing backflips when I was 9 years old. One, I'm cool getting on calls at like 9 p.m. and midnight, and sometimes I wake up at 5 a.m., like it doesn't matter. 2, asynchronously. So we use Slack a lot. We hate group meetings, just like I don't allow them. Hate recurring meetings. Like I don't want to do that. Why would I make other people do that? In 2018, I decided I wanted to have freedom of time and freedom of place. And so that's when I decided that I wanted to be remote first. And then our recruiting team reaches out to like 300 people a week that we want to hire all around the world. We look for people who won the math Olympiads, computer science Olympiads, robotics competitions, and other things like that, and then we try to hire them. Hey guys, thank you so much for coming to the talk. I'm gonna chill over here, networking outside.
Thank you, Cliff. Okay, we have one last speaker for tonight. It's gonna take a couple of minutes, sorry guys, and after we're gonna announce the winners of tonight, and at the end there is gonna be finally some wine and food to enjoy.
Hi everyone, we'll be very quick. So we're part of the We Network team. I don't know how many people are actually studying at the university at the moment. The We Network team is the enterprise team of the university, and we offer different programs in case you want to start your business and you need help. We have the Freelance Essentials and the Startup 101. In the Startup 101, you will find workshops as well as some skills lab on how to start your business and how to build a pitch deck and how to pitch to investors. We also have in-program funding as well as a competition that is called The Big Idea. Unfortunately, this year the applications are closed, but you can access the competition even 3 years after graduation. So yeah, just come to us in case you need any help with how to start your business, and then we can let you know more.
Okay, thank you so much.
So before we announce the winner of tonight's competition, we'd like to say a huge thank you to Speechify and Moonhub for coming tonight and speaking.
Thank you so much.
And now for the big reveal. The winner of the competition is My Money. Woo! Come. Now, if you would like, you can all go to the networking area where you can enjoy some pizza, some drinks, some wine, some Coca-Cola, whatever pleases you. Ah, vero, picture.